In the dim glow of the chandelier-lit dining room, Alexander's fork hovered midair, the clink of silverware fading into a roar in his ears. There, across the polished oak table from his radiant fiancée Elena, stood Sophia, his ex-wife, the woman he'd vowed to love forever before ambition tore them apart. Her uniform hung loose over a belly swollen with the child he'd never know was his, her hands trembling as she balanced a tray of crystal glasses, eyes downcast to hide the exhaustion etched into her once vibrant face. One wrong step, and the world he'd built without her would shatter, exposing the secret guilt that had shadowed every boardroom victory. As she approached their table, forcing a weary smile, Alex's heart seized, not with fear of discovery, but with the raw, aching compassion of a man realizing too late that some debts of the heart could never be paid in silence. Alexander Hale had always believed success was a straight line, from the cramped apartment he shared with Sophia in their early 20s, scraping by on ramen and dreams, to the penthouse overlooking the city skyline, where deals were sealed with handshakes worth millions. At 35, he was the CEO of Hale Tech, a tech empire built on innovative software that streamlined lives but left his own in fragments. Sophia had been his anchor then, the artist with paint-stained fingers who dreamed of opening a gallery, who laughed at his all-nighters and whispered encouragements when doubt crept in. They'd married young, impulsively, in a courthouse ceremony fueled by love and naivety. But as Hale Tech skyrocketed, the late nights turned into absences, arguments into silences, and finally, a divorce papers signed in haste, with Sophia walking away with nothing but memories and a settlement too meager to sustain her fading dreams. Now, 5 years later, Alexander sat in Le Chateau, the city's most exclusive French bistro, across from Elena Voss, the poised venture capitalist who'd swept into his life like a summer storm. Effortless, exhilarating, uncomplicated. Elena was everything Sophia hadn't been in those final strained months. Ambitious, socially adept, a perfect match for red carpet galas and whispered mergers. Tonight was meant to be the night he proposed, the ring burning a hole in his jacket pocket like a guilty secret. The sommelier had just poured a vintage Bordeaux when the waitress arrived, her steps measured, her posture a fragile armor against the world's indifference. Sophia Ramirez Hale, no, just Ramirez now, had never imagined her life reduced to this. The divorce had gutted her, not just financially but emotionally, leaving a void filled with grief that echoed in empty canvases gathering dust in her one-bedroom walk-up. She discovered the pregnancy 2 months after the papers were finalized, a cruel twist from their last reckless night together, a goodbye that lingered too long. Telling Alexander? Impossible. He'd moved on, photos of him with Elena splashed across society pages, while Sophia clawed through night shifts at a diner that barely covered prenatal vitamins. Poverty was a thief, stealing her sleep, her health, her hope. At 29, with swollen ankles and a back that screamed in protest, she waited tables at Le Chateau on weekends, a step up from the greasy spoon, but each forced bon appetit chipped at her pride. Isolation wrapped around her like fog, friends drifted away, family too far to help, and the baby's kicks were both a miracle and a reminder of abandonment's sting. She didn't recognize him at first. The man in the tailored suit, laughing softly at his date's quip, was a stranger veiled in success. But as she set down the amuse-bouche, tiny towers of foie gras and brioche, his eyes met hers, and the world tilted. Alexander. The fork slipped from his fingers, clattering like a gunshot. Elena glanced up, concern furrowing her brow. Darling? Everything all right? Fine, he murmured, voice thick, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Sophia's face paled, her tray wobbling. She steadied it, mumbling an apology, but her gaze darted to his companion, the woman with the diamond earrings and effortless grace. Elena. The name burned in Sophia's throat like bile. She turned to flee, but Alexander's hand shot out, gentle on her wrist. Wait, he whispered, low enough for only her to hear. Sophia. The name hung between them, a bridge over years of silence. Elena tilted her head, oblivious. Do you know her? An old friend. Alexander lied smoothly, his mind racing. Sophia pulled away, eyes glistening with unshed tears. Anger? Hurt? Relief? She nodded curtly and vanished into the kitchen's swing doors, leaving him adrift in the scent of her faded perfume, lavender, and regret. Throughout the meal, tension coiled in Alexander's chest like a spring. Elena chattered about their upcoming trip to Paris, her hand warm on his, but his thoughts were a whirlwind. He watched Sophia from afar, the way she winced as she bent to clear a neighboring table, the subtle hand on her belly, as if shielding the life within from prying eyes. Poverty had hollowed her cheeks, abandonment etched lines around her mouth, but there was still fire in her, the same spark that had drawn him to her in art school, when she painted murals on abandoned warehouse walls, declaring art a rebellion against despair. How had he let her fall so far? Guilt gnawed at him, not just for the divorce, but for the child, his child, growing in isolation. As dessert arrived, creme brulee cracked with a silver spoon, Alexander excused himself, claiming a call from the office. Elena nodded understandingly, ever the supportive partner. In the shadowed alcove near the restrooms, he caught Sophia refilling water pitchers, her back to him. "Sophia," he said softly, stepping close. She stiffened, turning with a glare that could shatter glass. "What do you want, Alex?" "Autographs. A tip for old time's sake." Her voice cracked, laced with the grief of 1,000 unspoken accusations. He swallowed hard, the CEO facade crumbling. I saw. The baby. Is it yours? Does it matter?" She laughed bitterly, a sound hollow as her bank account. "You have your life. I have mine. Just order something else if you can't stand the sight of me." But he didn't walk away. Instead, he reached into his wallet, pulling out not cash, but his business card, gold embossed, a portal to his world. "This isn't pity," he said, voice earnest. "Hail Tech has a foundation. Art programs for single mothers, scholarships. Apply. Or don't. But you're not alone in this city." He pressed a folded bill into her palm. $500, enough for a month's rent buffer. And something more, a handwritten note with his private number. "Call if you need anything." "For real." Sophia stared at the money, then him, tears spilling over. It was a small act, born of surprise and compassion, but in that moment, it pierced her isolation like sunlight through clouds. She pocketed it, whispering, "Why now?" "Because some promises don't expire," he replied, throat tight. "Even if I broke them." Back at the table, Elena sensed the shift in him, her eyes searching. That looked intense. Old flame. He hesitated, then nodded, the truth a half step toward redemption. Something like that. As the night wore on, laughter returned tentatively, but Alexander's mind lingered on Sophia's weary smile as she cleared their plates, a flicker of hope in her eyes. The ring stayed in his pocket. Proposals could wait when hearts were mending. Little did he know, this quiet generosity was the first thread in a tapestry of change, weaving struggle into hope, one compassionate knot at a time. Weeks blurred into a tentative rhythm for Sophia after that fateful night at Le Chateau. The $500 bought groceries, fresh produce for the baby's cravings, a secondhand bassinet that didn't wobble, and a sliver of breathing room amid the relentless tide of bills. But it was the card, tucked into her mirror's frame, that haunted her most. Alexander's number stared back like a dare, a lifeline from a man who'd once been her everything, now a ghost in a suit. Grief still clung to her like morning mist, the abandonment of their shared dreams, the isolation of solo doctor's visits where cold gel and ultrasound beeps were her only companions. Poverty whispered doubts. Could she raise this child on tips and temp jobs? Yet, that small act of kindness had cracked her armor. She applied to the Hailtech Foundation on a whim, her portfolio of urban sketches submitted with trembling fingers. Acceptance came swiftly, a grant for art classes tailored for expectant mothers, with stipends that eased the waitressing grind. Sophia attended her first class in a community center bathed in North Light, surrounded by women like her, tired eyes, swelling bellies, stories of lovers fled or lives upended. There was Maria, a Latina immigrant grieving the family she'd left behind. Lena, isolated after a partner's overdose, her laughter a rare bloom amid the pain. As charcoal met paper, Sophia sketched not just forms, but feelings. The curve of a hand cradling hope, the shadow of loss giving way to light. The instructor, a soft-spoken mentor funded by the program, noticed. "Your work breathes empathy," she said. It's healing you and us. For the first time in years, Sophia felt seen, not as a statistic of single motherhood, but as an artist reclaiming her voice. The baby's kicks grew stronger, syncing with her brushstrokes, a duet of resilience. Across town, Alexander's world tilted on its axis. The proposal to Elena lingered, postponed twice now, her patience a gentle prod wrapped in concern. "You're distant, Alex. Is it her?" Elena had asked one evening, curled on his leather sofa, a glass of Pinot Noir in hand. He confessed fragments, the divorce's regrets, the sighting at the restaurant, the child that might bind them eternally. Elena listened, not with jealousy, but a quiet compassion that surprised him. She'd faced her own shadows, a high society upbringing masking the grief of losing her mother young, leaving her armored in ambition to fend off isolation. "We all carry ghosts," she said, squeezing his hand. "But helping her? That's not haunting, it's honoring." Emboldened, Alexander checked on Sophia discreetly, a foundation contact confirming her progress. Then, the call came. Late one night, as rain lashed his windows, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Alex? It's me." Sophia's voice, tentative, laced with vulnerability. She poured it out, the grant's lifeline, the class's solace, but also the terror of impending motherhood alone. "The baby's due in 2 months. I need a friend. Not pity. Just someone who remembers." He met her at a quiet cafe, not Le Chateau's opulence, but a corner spot with vinyl booths and bottomless coffee. Sophia arrived bundled in a thrift store coat, her belly a proud curve, sketches spilling from her bag. They talked, not of the past's wreckage, but the present's fragile beauty. She shared Maria's story, how she'd connected her with a legal aid for immigration papers. Lena's, how a group mural project had coaxed her first genuine smile in months. "Your grant did that," Sophia said, eyes shining. "It's rippling out. Kindness, it multiplies." Alexander listened, the CEO in him awed by her grace amid struggle. He shared his own cracks, the loneliness of success, the grief of choices that cost him her. "I thought building an empire would fill the void. It didn't." As weeks turned to months, their meetings became a ritual. Walks in the park where he pushed her wheelchair in the final trimester, stories exchanged like currency. Elena joined once, tentatively, bearing baby clothes and a warmth that bridged old wounds. The women bonded over shared fears, Elena's of vulnerability and love, Sophia's of failure as a mother. Isolation thawed, hope bloomed in late-night texts, shared playlists of lullabies and indie folk. Labor came fierce and unannounced, a midnight rush to the hospital where Alexander waited in the sterile hall, Elena at his side, her hand a steady anchor. Hours stretched into eternity, punctuated by Sophia's cries echoing her life's battles. When the nurse emerged, beaming, "It's a boy," Alexander's world refracted. He entered, heart pounding, to find Sophia cradling a squirming bundle with his eyes, dark, curious, a mirror to the past. "Meet Elias," she whispered, exhausted but radiant. In that gaze, truth spilled. "He's yours, Alex." I couldn't keep it secret forever. Tears blurred his vision as he held his son, the weight of him a full circle reckoning. But the kindness circled further. Sophia, in her recovery haze, had sketched a portrait for Elena, a woman with fierce eyes and open arms, captioned "The Unexpected Sister." "For seeing me," Sophia said. Elena, moved to tears, confessed her own secret. Infertility's quiet grief, the isolation she'd masked. "You've given me hope," she whispered. In the days that followed, bonds wove tighter, co-parenting plans with Grace, art exhibits funded by Hail Tech, where Sophia's murals told tales of resilience, Maria's family reunited, Lena's gallery opening a beacon for grieving artists. Alexander proposed to Elena not in grandeur, but in that hospital room. Rings slipped onto her finger amid laughter and the baby's coos. Sophia watched, not with envy, but joy, a testament to love's expanse. Struggles hadn't vanished, bills lingered, doubts whispered, but hope had taken root, transforming isolation into community, grief into growth. One act of compassion had snowballed, from a whispered note in a bistro to a family redefined, proving kindness is quiet alchemy. In a world quick to divide and discard, Let us remember that empathy is the thread that mends the frayed edges of our shared humanity, turning strangers into saviors and wounds into wonders, because true love, in all its forms, always finds its way home. Moral of the story: in the quiet currency of compassion, even the smallest gesture can unravel isolation, heal old fractures, and weave lives into a tapestry of unbreakable connection.